We're going to use another way of solving quadratics. We've already learned how to solve by factoring. We've learned how to solve using square roots, and now we're going to solve by completing the square. Now, with completing the square, what we have is a difficult example. We have a few steps that we need to follow. One is that we're going to divide by a. So whatever our leading coefficient is, that's our a value. We're going to divide by that. So in this case, our a value is 2. So we divide all the terms by 2. Next, we're going to find our new c value. The formula is b over 2 squared. B, remember, is the number in front of the x. So we're going to take the 2, we're going to divide it by 2 and square it. Now, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do the same thing to the other side of the equation. That's why you notice the 2 over 2 squared on both sides. That way we're not changing the equation. It's still equal. After we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to factor it. And when we factor it, we're looking for two numbers that multiply together, give us 1, and add up to 2. And that would be 1 and 1. If we're doing it correctly, it's always going to be the same number. And that's why it's called completing the square, because we factor it to a square binomial. Now, this next step is going to look familiar because this is similar to what we were doing with solving by square roots. In order to get rid of a square, we take the square root, and then what we do is we solve for x, and in this case, subtract 1. And that gives us our answer. So when we're looking at example 1, the first thing that we're going to do is divide by a. Now, the nice thing about this one is that we don't have an a value. Technically, it's 1, but if we divide everything by 1, it doesn't change anything. So we can skip the first step. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the new c value. So we're going to take the negative 4, which is our b value. We're going to divide it by 2 and square it, and that gives us a 4. So we have x squared minus 4x plus 4. And remember, whenever we add something on one side of the equation, what we're going to do is we're going to add it on the other side of the equation. Our next step is we're going to factor it. Two numbers that multiply together give us 4. Add up to 4 would be 2 and 2. And that should be a negative 4. So this is negative 2, negative 2. So that would be x minus 2 squared is equal to 1 plus 4 gives us 5. Now we're going to get rid of the square. And in order to get rid of a square, what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root. So when we take the square root, we have x minus 2 is equal to, remember to put both roots, the positive and the negative. And what we do is we add 2. Now, 2 and the square root of 5 are not like terms, so our final answer is 2 plus or minus the square root of 5. Now, looking at letter B, this one actually has an a value. The a value is 2. So we're going to divide each of these by 2. When we do that, we get x squared minus 8x is equal to 3. We're going to find our new c value. So we take our b value, divide it by 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to square it. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. So that gives us x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 3 plus 16. Then what we're going to do is we're going to factor it. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply together, give us 16, add up to negative 8, and that would be negative 4 and negative 4. Once again, if we're doing this correctly, those numbers are always going to be the same because our goal is to get a square binomial. And the reason that we want a square binomial is because we can take the square root of it and we're able to solve it quickly. In this case, we get plus or minus the square root of 19. What we're going to do is we're going to add the 4. And so our answer is x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 19. Now, if we're looking at letter C, we see that our a value is 3, so we're dividing each of the terms by 3. I get x squared plus 2x, and then this is minus 4 is equal to 0. I'm going to bring the 4 over. I'm also going to find my new c value, and that would be 2 over 2 squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So I have x squared plus 2x plus 1. And remember, I move the 4 over, so it's 4 plus 1. Whatever I do on one side, I have to do the same thing on the other. Next step is we are going to factor it. Two numbers that multiply together give us 1. Add up to 2 would be 1 and 1. So what we have is x plus 1 squared is equal to 5. Then what I'm going to do is get rid of the square. So I take the square root, and I have x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 5. In my very last step, what I'm going to do is subtract the 1. So x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. Take some time and try those next two. So if we're looking at the next one, what we have is no a value. So we're going to go straight to our c value. So we're going to go c is equal to negative 6 over 2 squared. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Squared gives us a 9. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 1 plus 9. Then I'm going to factor it. Two numbers that multiply together give us 9. Add up to negative 6 would be negative 3 and negative 3. So what I get is x minus 3 squared is equal to 10. Then in order to get rid of my square, I'm going to take the square root, and that gives me x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. I'm going to add the 3, and I get x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 10. And that right there would be my answer. Now for our last one, we see that we have a leading coefficient of 3, so our a value is 3. We divide all the terms by 3. That gives us x squared plus 4x is equal to 7. I'm going to find my new c value. 4 divided by 2 squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. And that gives me x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 7 plus 4. I'm going to factor it. Two numbers that multiply together give us 4. Add up to 4 would be 2 and 2. Once again, if we're doing it correctly, should always be the same number. In order to get rid of the square, we take the square root, and that gives us x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 11. Then when I subtract the 2, what I get is x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 11.